Hey everybody, welcome to Sweater Weather, a podcast about stories, sometimes Canadian ones. Today we have a Canadian story, I think. I'm Aaron.
I'm Naomi.
So, hey Naomi.
Hey Aaron.
Usually start off with some jokes these days just to get us warmed up. This is a joke.
Okay, thanks for warning me.
Sometimes it's good to signal that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you knew this, but we have a new prime minister. His name's Mark Carney.
Mm-hmm.
And we're writers, and we follow the news about books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
His book is number one on the nonfiction list in Canada. It's called Values. It was actually published a few years ago in 2021. I read the book.
You did?
Yeah, I read it. It wasn't as boring as I thought it would be.
Okay.
Yeah. There was some surprising stuff in there.
Okay.
So this is one thing I learned that was surprising. You know that when Mark Carney was governor of the Bank of England, he insisted that people call him governor? Do you know that?
I did know that, yeah.
You knew that?
Did, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guessed it. It's kind of obvious.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, if your title is governor.
Yeah, and you're not from England, but you're there.
You're there.
So you think that everyone there says governor all the
time. Growing up, this is another surprising thing. Growing up, Carney didn't think he'd become a banker, but that he'd go into the family business, working at carnivals.
Carnivals.
He comes from a long line of carnies.
Yeah, he does. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Mark Carney writes about his personal life a little too much.
Okay.
And a little too much detail.
Okay.
I don't want to get into it here, but this book could be called 50 Shades of Carney. Or maybe just Carnality.
Oh, nice. It should have been called that.
Did you see some of the news segments of like people calling him daddy and stuff?
Big Daddy?
Lead us, daddy. That was in
Yeah.
That was on This Hour's 20 Minutes. We saw a clip of that. Other
people have called him daddy too.
I think it's like it's a meme.
He's our daddy.
A liberal meme.
Okay.
Yeah. People are loving the dad energy, I think, of Mark Carney in a time of turmoil, right? And it seems like when there's a baby down south going wah, 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 leading things that we want a daddy up here.
Yeah, it's a good contrast.
It's all just vibes. It's all just vibes. Who knows what any of it really means.
He does have a dad vibe.
He looks like a dad. He is a dad. Mm-hmm. I mean, Trump's a dad too.
Wow.
You kind of figure he's not a good dad.
He's a father.
Yeah. So there's some other stuff in the news too. Mike Myers is back. He's back in the news doing pro-Canada stuff. Yeah. So he was on SNL again doing his Elon Musk impersonation.
Right.
And at the end of the show, he was seen to be wearing a Canadian Tire t-shirt.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
So he's wearing Canadian shirts now all the time on SNL. But some people online were critical. They were saying, like, pointing out that Canadian Tire sells a lot of goods that aren't made in Canada, actually. Was this a mind-blowing revelation to you, Naomi?
People were really upset about
People
that.
go to Canadian Tire and actually think everything in there is from Canada.
Yeah, but were people really mad at Mike Myers? Because
it's all politicized, right?
So,
because, people who don't like
it's
the
just
liberals.
the word Canadian. That's what the t-shirt was about.
Yeah. No, but exactly. But it got me wondering, like what would a made in Canada only Canadian Tire actually sell? So I was doing some research into this. Guess what they wouldn't sell?
What?
Tires.
Really? We don't make tires
There's
in
no
Canada?
tires, but I think they could offer an array of cross-country skis made from antique barnwood.
Yeah, I'd buy some of those.
They could sell that because they'd get that in Canada. And
they could use the barn that you were born in.
We're back on that, are we? Okay. It really should be, at this point, I drove by it.
Yeah.
Last time I was in Niagara.
The barn that you grew up in.
It's not in good shape. Very rusty roof.
Uh-huh.
I think there's probably holes in the wall at this point.
Perfect for skis then.
So you definitely, I'm thinking, you definitely ski on that barnwood.
Yeah.
They wouldn't, at a made in Canada only Canadian Tire, they wouldn't have patio furniture. That's all made, foreign made.
And we can't figure out how to make it here.
But, they would sell you a pile of PPE that's left over from the pandemic.
Okay.
That you could sit on.
As a chair.
It's soft.
Yeah.
I think it's the last time we tried to make anything in Canada. So made in Canada Canadian Tire wouldn't have tents either. It's a problem. But one of their employees, Doug,
Mm.
would go camping with you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've actually been camping with Doug.
You know, if you buy the beer,
Yeah.
Doug will take you to his favorite trout fishing spot
Yeah.
as well.
He actually prefers to be called Dougie.
Dougie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Canada only Canadian Tire doesn't have any fishing rods either.
Really?
No, but you could use a broken hockey stick with some copper wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Do we make floss? You could use a piece of floss, maybe.
I don't know if we make floss or not. It's a good
But it's
question.
already on a reel.
The
I don't know much about fishing, but I know.
but you've never been fishing.
No, I have been actually.
You've been fishing
as a child.
Who took you fishing?
My friend Jessica.
Where?
In the river by our houses.
The suburban river by our suburban house.
Well, it wasn't really suburban; it was urban.
It was actually urban fishing.
Yeah.
It's not. Okay, urban fishing isn't what you normally think of as the idyllic fishing.
It would be like as if in Calgary we went to the Bow River and stuck a fishing rod in it.
Yeah. I mean, do I see people fishing down there? I guess they do.
Like,
sometimes.
I should add, we never caught a fish. She was often there by herself fishing. She might have caught a fish. She was really into it, but I wasn't.
Would she eat them?
I don't know. I don't know if she ever, maybe I'll ask her if she ever caught a fish, but I don't know. I'm sure she didn't eat them. If she did.
I mean, would you be able to get it off? See, I went.
I mean, they would be very dirty.
I went fishing. Like my uncle took me fishing a couple times, but like I couldn't. This was like in cottage country, northern Ontario, but like I couldn't stand like holding the fish.
Oh yeah, sure. I've never done the part where you take the fish off and bang it or whatever. Oh, but at my grandparents' cottage, actually, my grandfather did catch fish and we ate them.
He did, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So he would clean them and everything too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I could do it as an adult.
I think, unless I just made that up, but I feel like we did.
As an adult, I might have a little bit more guts, so to speak, to get the fish guts out of there.
Now I feel like my grandfather didn't do that. Maybe a neighbor gave us the fish or something.
Doesn't make sense, eh?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't quite add
but
up.
one time I bought some squid that still had the guts in it.
Oh.
And it was really gross. And I had to like try to get the guts out. And
cleaning a squid's really hard. Aren't you pulling the skin off and stuff?
You have to pull all the parts apart, and it's quite a thing.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Yeah, I regretted it. It felt extremely what's the word?
Gross?
Yeah. It was more than I'd bargained for.
Carnal?
Carnal, yeah.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Not meat, but
I was not as alienated from the means of production as usual.
Yeah. Sometimes you want to be alienated from the means of production, you know? Kind of like, yeah.
But I didn't learn a very important lesson because I kept eating squid after that.
Squid's okay. Octopus is like, they're probably really smart.
Yeah, we like them.
So eating them feels a little worse, maybe?
Yeah. It's like eating your friend.
Yeah. There's a lot of books. I feel like octopus is a meme lately. Like there are books like respectable middle-class fiction books where a woman befriends a octopus.
Is that really a thing?
That's a real one.
Oh, okay.
Called Very Bright Creatures or Bright Creatures.
There's also that movie, of course, the documentary My Octopus Friend.
I feel like that started it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that started this trend.
I mean, they're just very endearing.
Okay. So what are we talking about this week, Naomi?
We're talking about the ancient tradition of...
Ancient. Yeah, kind of.
We're talking about the television show. This hour has 22 minutes.
Yeah, so it's been on since 1993. It's a sketch comedy show, and
it's Canadian.
And it's very Canadian. And
CBC.
Yeah, the CB has been running on there for 32 years at this point.
Newfoundland.
Well, I mean, not really.
It was started by a group of comedians from Newfoundland.
Right. So, Mary Walsh, Kathy Jones, Rick Mercer, and Greg Tomey. They were the original cast members. And I guess, were they all from Newfoundland? I
think so. And what about Colin Mockery?
That was later.
Oh, okay.
So there's been a lot of
people
cycled through the cast over the decades at this point.
Those do feel like the four main ones. Yeah.
Those were the four main ones at the beginning. And like, I do remember being a kid, a teenager, and watching This Hour is 22 Minutes and actually kind of thinking of it as a appointment viewing. Yeah. Like I wanted to watch it because it was like It was funny. Like it was funny and kind of edgy and stuff, it seemed.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why was, I mean, of course, all the comedians back then, they were like, they were in their 30s, probably, maybe even younger. Mm-hmm. Rick Mercer looked pretty young back then. He looked very young back then. So it was like the hip version of what I was seeing elsewhere on the CBC, which was like the Royal Canadian Air Farce, which was
that was never funny.
It never seemed funny to us.
Yeah, it never
but that
seemed
was
funny
for
to us.
our parents and actually maybe even our grandparents.
Yeah, okay.
So and that cast, I don't think they ever really changed. It was the same troupe.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading some Canadian culture history that was about the post-war era, and like those people were active in the Canadian theater scene in like the 40s and 50s.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it was like these were very old by the time we were watching them.
Yeah.
And so, but just by contrast too, this hour is 22 minutes was like they were the new kids on the block. Like they were young and cool and hip and stuff. And I think like I did pay attention for a few years, and I kind of vaguely paid attention when Rick Mercer went off and had his own show.
Yes.
And I watched that a little bit, but then like I think at that point I'm at college.
Yeah.
And I'm just like not paying attention at all anymore.
Same.
And I think I'm just probably thinking at that point, like in early 2000s, like early mid 2000s, like whatever.
I went through a long period of not having a TV.
Yeah.
And sometimes I realized, I'm like, why have I never heard of this thing? And it's because it was during that period. And so there was a big chunk in the early 2000s and like 2010, like it went on for quite a while.
Yeah, wasn't watching TV.
I guess
either.
like mid 90s to like 2005 or 2000, something like that.
Yeah, you lived on you didn't.
I had like roommates and we just didn't have
a TV, didn't watch
or we
TV.
did and we didn't have cable. We just used it for movies.
Well, it would be on the CBC, but yeah.
Well, for whatever reason, I didn't watch TV during that time that I can recall. And I think I just sort of forgot about certain shows that I'd liked before when I did have a TV again. I never really went back to watching TV in the same way. Yeah.
I never went back to it either. Yeah, then it was like the streaming era.
Yeah.
And then then it was just started like, so have not paid attention to this hour's 22 minutes in a long, long, long time.
Yeah, same.
Kind of surprised, like, oh yeah, this thing is still on. And like a lot of things Canadian right now, they're getting a big boost from the nationalist sentiment since like, the trade war and all that.
And there's plenty to make jokes about, right, Aaron?
And there's lots of content.
Yeah.
Lots of
to
try to make jokes about.
Yeah.
And so we went back and we watched a couple of the latest. This hour is 22 minutes. As well as a retrospective, a 30-year retrospective that they put out a couple.
Yeah, which made me want to go back and watch some more clips from the past, which I did.
You did? Oh, that's good.
Just a few.
That's good. Yeah. So
mostly Marg Delahunty.
Marg Delahunty.
Hunty.
Yeah, Hunty. I remember at the time just having secondary embarrassment watching Marg Delahunty, but now watching the clips again as in that 30-year retrospective. Was like, oh, that is very funny. Actually, like that is so ballsy that she would do that.
I always loved Marg, I have to say. And I remember one time, actually my clearest memory of the show.
Explain what the character is.
Oh, so Mark Delahunty is Mary Walsh, hilarious comedian with a very strong Newfoundland accent who dresses up in a costume inspired by Xena, Princess Warrior. So there's like a breastplate and like armor but with like a lot of skin sticking out.
And she has a sword, a plastic sword.
She has a sword and like a hat, different hats, I feel like, and glasses. She always wears her glasses.
We're still wearing her
glasses.
And
so she has this really silly, like incongruous look, and these like knee-high boots with high heels and stuff. So the look's very incongruous because she's she wears like bright red lipstick and stuff, but she has a kind of purposely non-sexy look. Like Xena, Princess Warrior, is like a sexy lady in a ridiculous outfit where like parts of her have armor and other parts are naked, and she has like cleavage and kind of Wonder Woman-ish. And Marg Delahunty, her costume is kind of made of stuff that she found lying around the house, it looks like, and she's sort of like, she's wearing these like very matronly glasses, and
she would just surprise. She would ambush
politicians.
Ambush politicians. At a certain point, I think they stopped being that surprised to see her. Probably.
Yeah, sometimes they're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" Often on Parliament Hill, so it's often the Prime Minister. Yeah, but not always. Like she showed up at like Stockwell Day's house. He was a prominent
he was the
creationist.
He was the leader of the Canadian Alliance.
Yeah. So I guess he was in Ottawa at the time too, wasn't he?
He's from Penticton.
Anyway, whatever. She was
Yeah.
all around doing her ambushing politicians thing. And like at one point, she kind of made out with Stephen Harper without his consent.
Yeah, really made out with him, like red lipstick all over him and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he looked like he was kind of participating.
Yeah. Yeah, you could get a little closer to prime ministers back then, maybe you know,
like he was often up in Jean Chrétien's face and
Jean Chrétien was earlier, right?
Paul Martin,
I mean, the Chrétien was like the show started in '93, and that's exactly the beginning of the liberal. There's a whole liberal decade there with Jean Chrétien, prime minister. Maybe they were more afraid of Jean Chrétien because he did get put. You know, he grabbed that one guy by the neck. That famous picture, he grabbed some guy, like a protester got up in his face and he just grabbed him by the neck and pushed him away.
That's right.
Oh my god.
Oh, those were the days.
In the 90s. Rough. That was back when, you know, there weren't rubberized floors on the playground.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a tougher time.
Tougher prime minister. And so I don't know. What do you want to say?
Well, that was like what do we want to say? I mean, so we went back and started watching it because, you know, basically, and we still don't really watch TV. We never went back to normal TV. But of course, CBC's got the Gem streaming platform now, and I end up watching sketch comedy a lot on TikTok, where like basically the entire episode of this hour 22 minutes, like almost all of it is just there in clips, which is honestly maybe the best way to watch sketch comedy. SNL is the same. Like SNL is like way too long of a show. It's often pretty boring. But if you can just skim the clips, it's kind of nice. So I've kind of been getting back into sketch comedy just because it's like, oh yeah, it's good for the short form video, and so I've seen a couple of this hour's 22 minutes lately, and I'm like, oh yeah, this show. So and obviously it's a good topic for our show. So we went back and we watched a couple of the more recent ones. So,
I wanted to say, I forgot, I was gonna say that my clearest memory of like my teen years and this hour's 22 minutes was when I had a friend who was a German exchange student, basically.
Yeah.
And we were watching, a bunch of us were watching it, and she was there. And like, you know, of course you're not going to understand political comedy in another country.
How could she understand any of that?
No, of course she didn't. But like, it just made me realize how specific it was and how I just remember like seeing this culture gap open up. And then she was like, with Marg Delahunty, she just thought it was funny because she was like, she's so ugly. And I was like, I felt really like defensive of Marg Delahunty.
Yeah, it's funny though.
I was like, but she's not ugly. Like, that's not the point.
Well, that's part of it. Is that
she's sort of, but like, I just felt like, no. It's not that she's ugly.
What did she call her? Did she call herself Princess Warrior or something?
Princess Warrior.
She didn't say something else, Warrior. What was her mission? Did she ever say what her mission was?
I don't remember. But it's like my friend missed everything except the fact that Marg Delahunty was quote unquote ugly. That's all I remember. I just remember being like amorphously offended, like, no, you don't get it. But I couldn't explain.
I'm sorry, that is part of the joke, is that she doesn't look sexy in the outfit.
Yeah.
You know, the sexy outfit. So
no, I know, which is again, like, why was I so offended on Marg Delahunty's behalf?
Because you liked her so much. Mary Walsh is really funny. She's really great.
Yeah.
So the current cast members, Mark Critch, probably most notably, he does a lot of their impressions, their mainstay impressions. Trump, Doug Ford. Did we see any others from him? He does a very good Trump, actually, doesn't he? Trent McClellan, I think, Abba Amukwando, Stacey McGonigal, and a guy named Chris Wilson, who's the latest addition. And he does Pierre Poilievre. So I'm assuming they were like, we need someone to do Pierre Poilievre. He does a great Pierre Poilievre. What did you think about the modern version of this hour's 22 minutes? Can I just say the first thing I noticed is like, oh, I do understand why conservatives want to cut the CBC because it is extremely like liberal.
It's kind of like SNL, how they like nod towards, they kind of make fun of the liberals too, but like
lightly. Very lightly.
Yeah, very lightly. They're like, oh, Carney's kind of like cold, uptight and boring or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, there's like Pierre is evil. Yeah.
So okay, I did like the sketch where it's Pierre Poilievre, like they're trying to do a version of the Mike Myers commercial.
Yeah, that was hilarious
with Mark Carney, and so but instead of that being the comedian Mike Myers, it's the masked murderer Michael Myers
at the hockey
ring. Yeah, it's fun.
It was really funny.
It's just written well and played well.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, but if you're watching that, if you are like a dedicated conservative, like you must be mad watching this
Yeah,
stuff.
of course, of course.
It's like the national broadcaster.
It's like anti everything you stand for propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
At
Totally
the same time, can you blame people who work at a publicly funded institution who are against the politics of like funding cuts and everything, right? Let's just not, I don't know, we should go there. I mean, I'm probably of our audience.
They're all
well, if you're
equally...
if you're in arts and culture, that means you've probably gone to university for a topic, for a degree or more than one degree that is arts and culture related. You probably at this point, if you work in some sort of public or public adjacent institution. So all of this means that when conservatives talk about pro-market and, funding cuts and stuff, which is standard conservative talk, you just don't like that. You don't like that. And a big part of the platform is defunding the CBC. And by, how many people do we know who work at the CBC?
Yeah.
In our line of work or something similar, right? So I don't know what to say about this. Like, I can't really get on apart from arguing about what's right and wrong or whose values are better, I just argue like purely from like self-preservation point of view, like you can kind of cut down Canadian politics into people who work for publicly funded institutions and people who don't. And that's like, I think you're going to see an alignment with conservative and liberal that way.
That's fair. But I mean, like the same thing isn't really true for like SNL, and they do the same thing.
No, SNL. Yeah. It's just like, Hollywood famously liberal. So they say, yeah.
And I feel like they've been less harsh in the past. Like Dana Carvey's George Bush Senior and stuff was like pretty, like it was funny, but it wasn't like that harsh,
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. I'm just trying to remember. I just remember how hilarious. I just came into my head when
it was just a very good impression of George Bush.
And then when Will Ferrell was George W.
W.
And they were together, that was very funny. Like there was one that was like Mice and Men.
Dad and son. Naomi, that is extremely like critical. And if you're like it's a saying basically that he has mental deficiencies.
No, it was really mean to George W, but it wasn't really mean to George Senior. Like he was like considering shooting his son so he wouldn't be president.
That is funny. That is 90s comedy for you.
Oh my God. Well, it's stuck in my mind for the rest of my life.
So he wouldn't be president?
Yeah.
So this is early 2000s or late 90s?
It was like when George W. had like recently been elected, I think.
What, 2000, yeah.
And they're on a hunting trip together. And he's like asking his dad for advice or whatever. He doesn't understand anything. And then George Senior's like, run along. And he's like, and it's just so funny because like Will Ferrell's so big and Dana Carvey's so small. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the role of political comedy is really interesting to think about, and it's very debatable, like, because I mean, they even said this in the 30-year retrospective. They're like, yeah, we would go make fun of the politicians, but then like they started to expect it. And then looking back, it's like, oh, that just we kind of like often we're just making them look good, like making them look like they're good sports.
Yeah.
That they're more, they're human and humane and
so
funny.
True.
So you're like, yeah, what is the role of it? Like, because I mean, that joke about George W. Bush being like so stupid, you're like, okay. So what does that really mean to how we think about George W. Bush, except that he's kind of an innocent and he's not making terrible, evil decisions and stuff. You're just like...
And then, of course, now, like the last like 10 years, we've been like, he was actually great.
The memory hole we just constantly are tumbling into.
Yeah.
Or the past is just something totally new now. We've just forgotten what it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is how our brains work.
I guess so.
It's funny when there's like such clear evidence of what we were thinking at the time, and we're still like nope.
No. So what else did you like about the new This Hour is 22 Minutes?
Well,
I have to say, I liked it. Like, I was surprised by how, like, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. Like,
it was like 75% funny.
Hey, you're putting out a half-hour show every week.
I know, it's hard.
I think they do 24 episodes a year.
That's insane.
So half the year you're putting out an episode every week.
Yeah.
It's a very tough, I mean, the retrospective was talking a bit about the process, the 7-day-a-week production process. And you're like, oh yeah, I could see that being very invigorating, really challenging, really fun, and then also like totally exhausting.
Yeah.
So all of that considered, you're like, yeah, 75% funny.
Yeah.
That's good.
It is good.
Yeah.
It's often better than SNL.
Yeah. Yes.
Like ratio.
Well, yes. I mean, SNL's a much longer show, but yeah.
Yeah. I liked how they would have like a news clip from the real news, and then they would have their actors like replace the people in the clip and like keep going, like what happened behind the scenes. They did that quite a few times.
What example?
Like they showed one with that liberal politician who quit to spend more time with his family.
Oh yeah. Well, no, it wasn't any particular. Oh yeah, there were a couple. It was Mark Carney. Sorry, not Mark Carney. It was Mark Critch playing a liberal politician.
Yeah, but before that, they showed a clip of a real politician.
3 or 4.
Being like, oh, I have to go spend more time with my family.
Right, because it was when Trudeau was down in the dumps in the polls, and all these liberals were quit. They were all resigning.
Because there's no way that
we're not going to run again. Yeah, and then
and then it just showed
a bunch of them like showing up again.
Yeah. And then there was a sketch with Mark Critch playing one of these politicians, and he's at home like feeding his baby. And his wife is like, are you sure you didn't just leave because the liberals weren't going to win? He's like, no, I wanted to spend time with my baby. And then he's watching TV. He sees
that the liberals are up in the polls.
Yeah, and then the wife comes back and he's gone. And she's like, where is he?
And the baby spoon is just spinning by itself on the table like he ran off so fast.
Yeah. And then the baby points at the TV and he's already on it.
He's on the TV making his announcement.
And then he's coming back. Yeah.
That was great.
that was funny.
That was maybe the funniest sketch of
And then they tried to do it with other ones too, where like they had... oh darn! It just left my mind. They had Pierre, Poilievre, where he made his comment that everyone's joking about this week about biological clocks.
Yeah,
and then they showed him with his like team, his PR team, being like, "What were you thinking?" Or his campaign team.
Yeah,
but it wasn't that good. But it was a good idea.
Yeah,
in my opinion. And then there was a really good one that was like Trump and Carney having a phone call. Who is it who plays Trump?
Mark McKinney.
That's Mark McKinney.
No. Trump. Sorry, Carney is played by Mark McKinney. So I guess they're trying him out.
Yeah.
Trump is played by Mark Critch.
Oh, that's Mark. Oh yeah.
2 marks. 2 marks.
He's so good as Trump. It's so funny. And there's something like Trump is so funny to make fun of because like the way he, like the fact that he actually talks like that is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah. He's developed this insane way of talking.
Yeah. But
it's just he somehow he manages to emphasize literally every word he's saying. And you're just like, it's crazy.
But he also says everything in this tone where he's like, it's so sad. It's so sad.
Yeah, I mean, he's drawing emphasis to everything he says somehow. It makes it sound like it's all important or something.
But it's all kind of tragic as well. But he's going to fix it. Like that's his tone.
I liked Stacey McGonigal. She's really good in this. I'd seen her around, and she did an impression of Daniel Smith, the Alberta premier, which I had never seen anyone impersonate Daniel Smith, and I thought it was a funny take on Daniel Smith. They made her into kind of a wackadoodle, like kind of moonstone, like vision board kind of person. Oddly, made her that kind of a woman, which is, I think, a very big editorial swing because I don't think Dana.
I realize I don't really know what she's like.
But I don't even. Yeah, I think a lot of people would point out that she's whatever anti-science in some ways. Or
like
whatever.
I know what her positions are, but I don't know. Like her personality doesn't really seem very clear.
No, so actually, the impersonation gave her more personality than I think the real Daniel Smith has. And they made her she was on a podcast talking about how she wanted basically Poilievre and Trump to cooperate or something, and she pulled out a vision board, and it was just like a collage of different Trump and Poilievre pictures. Yeah. And then she folded it, and then she had them kissing each other. And I mean, whatever you think of the politics, it is a pretty funny gag. And she's a funny performer. She's a very funny performer.
Yeah.
So I liked all that stuff. Again, I was struck because if you're just on social media or whatever, well, I guess when you're on social media, you're kind of struck by, oh yeah, this is very conservative. Oh, this is very liberal. Oh, this is very conservative. And then going back to television, kind of used to this not being, for me, it's not political. It's not overtly political. I'm like, oh no, this is kind of overtly political.
Oh yeah, for sure it is. And there's been some clips just going around that I've seen lately, like people have sent me from This Hour's 22 Minutes, kind of really pointedly about, the whole Buy Canadian movement and how Like there's one about how it's really Loblaws that's raking it in.
Sure. Yeah, let's support our billionaires.
Yeah. Like we're
as if
being so earnest about it, but ultimately we're just giving all our money to the grocery store.
It's just another marketing scheme.
Yeah.
It's just one more thing to market on.
So yeah, they're pretty smart about the way like it's funny, and then it's also like, oh man, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Well, this hour is 22 minutes. I'm gonna dip into it every now and then.
Yeah. I do miss Mary Walsh, but
they're doing an election night special.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'd watch that a little bit.
We should watch it.
I'd watch it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least the clips or whatever. Anything else to say about this hour's 22 minutes, Naomi?
Well, I like the title, This Hour Has 22 Minutes.
Right. Based on, it's a reference to this news show that was long, long gone.
This hour has 7 days.
Yes.
But also, it's so funny because like a half-hour TV show has 22 minutes.
It's true. And their 30-year retrospective was this hour has 30 years.
Yeah.
Or was this 22 minutes has 30 years?
Yeah, something like that.
This 22 minutes has 30 years.
Yeah, that was great.
That's pretty good.
I remember when I first realized like what this hour has 22 minutes means, and I was like, that's so clever.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right on.
Cool. All right, we approve.
We approve.
All right.
We like our Canadian stuff. We'll be watching that now instead of American TV.
We could do, I've floated ideas for this podcast where all we do is watch stuff on CBC Gem that in theory everyone in Canada could watch. Not that they do.
No.
Because even based on the numbers for this podcast, I'm like, when we do something
about Canada,
there's usually actually fewer views than something American. So it's kind of
Come on, Canadians.
It's kind of well, honestly, I was feeling watching this hour's 20 minutes. I was like feeling super nostalgic because I was like, I'm like a teenager again, and like I believe that Canadian culture matters, which is something that I have not felt in a long time. And I'm also thinking this maybe can't last. This is a bit artificial. This is a bit trumped up, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was a very interesting feeling.
Has it ever occurred to you? This is something that occurs to me every now and then, that in the future, maybe even now, there'll be young people who think that the word Trump means Donald Trump.
Right.
And so when you say like trumped up, they'll think that word came from Donald Trump.
There's already people who believe that.
I'm sure.
I almost guarantee it.
Yeah. And so the whole word and association of the word, the whole meaning of that word is going to alter.
The guy wins. He can't stop winning, this Donald Trump guy.
Yeah.
Changing the language, probably.
Yeah. So if someone says trumped up charges, now it's like, oh, the kind of charges Trump got.
All right. Well, yeah.
What the heck?
Probably.
I'd like to start a campaign to teach everyone and remind us that the word Trump existed before.
You're not going to win that. I teach writing for a living. Reminding people what the actual meaning of words was.
Yeah.
By the way, the meaning is actually going to change.
Yeah, I know. But I feel like I don't want this one too. It's not right.
Oh, well. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, thanks for talking to me, Aaron.
Okay. Talk to you. Oh, yeah. If you listen this far, you should definitely like the podcast, subscribe, share. If you're listening on Apple iTunes or Spotify or any other podcast app that has ratings, give us a 5-star rating or whatever their high rating is. That really helps the show.
What if the person thinks we're merely okay?
Well, if they listen this far, I feel like they probably like us enough. Now, I want to start reminding people at the beginning of the show too. But anyway, please just share, subscribe if you can. Okay. Yeah,
because we're trying to do something here, guys.
We're doing it. We're
Canadian.
We're doing it every week. Stop. Okay, let's not seem too pathetic here.
Why not? That's how you get stuff.
That's how you get stuff. It works for Loblaws.
We have to play our trump card.
Okay. Bye.